Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for having me here. Thanks for all of you coming. Thanks to the library, the Bangor Daily News, and of course, the League of Women Voters for putting this on. I'm really delighted that you're all here tonight. We have an important vote on November 7th. It's really important, and I think the more we can do to inform voters. At the Office of Public Advocate, where I work, I am a public advocate for the state of Maine. We've been studying this issue for months and months and months. We came to the conclusion fairly early on that rather than take sides in this issue, our job, we would be doing the public a better service by being neutral. So I am not here to convince you to vote for or against this proposal. We thought that our expertise in our office could be better used by trying to answer your questions, help educate voters, so that you make the most informed decision on November 7th. So we are here to help you make up your mind on how to vote.
People. Go to the second tab. Yes, introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Al Cleveland, and I'm the campaign manager, the yes on question 3 side to build the Pine Tree Power Company. I come to this work after doing democracy reform, democracy protections work across Maine and across the country, and just like with a deep passion for how we increase our democratic process and increase people's control over things that matter to them in their community. So we'll be talking tonight, hopefully answering a lot of your questions, but also just wanted to name that we'll be available afterwards and available now until election day to answer any of the many questions that I know folks probably have here in the audience.
Thank you. Charlotte?
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. My name is Charlotte Warren, and I am representing the Maine Affordable Energy Coalition. We are the coalition in opposition to the Pine Tree Power proposal. I come to this work as recently retired public official. I served as a city councilor in the city of Hollowell, and including as mayor for 12 years. I just turned out of the legislature where I served with your fine Senator Gratwick. And I'm really here as a public servant, doing my part to educate people that this is not the right direction for me. So that's the part that you'll hear me talk about a lot tonight. Thank you, Nancy.
Doc? Go triple reach.
My name is Jonathan Fulford. I am also a volunteer with Yes for question 3. I was a builder and carpenter for 38 years, lived in Monroe. I now live in Belfast, and I've been volunteering since 2019 when I first heard about this effort, because it was really clear to me that restoring local control and having more affordable and reliable energy, that this was a great step forward that we needed to take. And so I'll be speaking about that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Barbara, and the League of Women Voters of the Bangor area. My name is Barbara Alexander. I am a consultant for consumers. I am a volunteer who has been speaking in opposition to this proposal for over a year. I am not being paid. My background is that I spent 10 years on the staff of the Maine Public Utilities Commission. And since 1996, I have represented consumers in utility proceedings across the country and in Canada on behalf of local, national, consumer organization and public advocate offices in many states. Thank you.
Well, we've had introductions, but what we're going to do now is Mr. Harwood is going to give a 3-minute presentation setting out the issues, and then each side will have 3 minutes to make opening statements.
Thanks. I don't know that I'm going to need to take all 3 minutes because I really want to hear from you and what your questions are. But there are a few issues that you need to be aware of here. You're going to hear some very passionate and well thought out advocacy from my friends on my left and my right this evening. And it's hard sometimes to keep it straight what the real issues are. Some of this passion, and some of this will be hyperbole, and some of it will be exaggeration. I will try to do my best to help sort through some of these issues. I don't think it's appropriate for any of us up here to lecture you or try and convince you whether government should be running our utilities or not. I think we all have kind of an instinctive reaction as to what our role of government should be. Some people think government is a force of good and should be doing more. Some people think government should be doing less. I think each of you have the understanding and your values and your politics to sort through that. What I want to try and identify are some of the more specific differences between the CMP and Versant model and the Pine Tree model. There are some differences out there that will make a difference. First, you're going to hear a lot about the acquisition price, the cost of acquiring this. You're going to hear that it will be a significant amount above what Versant and CMP cost, what their cost for the facilities were. And this goes back to the way we regulate them and the rates we set. In simple terms, the rates we set for CMP and Versant are based on their cost. In many cases, those costs were incurred decades ago. They may have bought a piece of land for $50 an acre, and today it's worth $500 or $1,000 an acre. The Constitution says that when you condemn private property and use eminent domain, you must pay fair market value. And so the Pine Tree will be paying CMP and Versant not based on their original cost, but on the fair market value of all the land, property, and assets that are going to be transferred to Pine Tree. That difference between the fair market value and the cost is an important piece that we need to focus on, because that will be an additional cost to the ratepayers. The other piece, to just quickly, is the cost of raising the capital. These utilities raise lots of capital every year to keep their system working and keep our lights on. The Pine Tree, through some, we'll get into this, through some tax issues, have a lower cost of capital than CMP and Versant. When they go to Wall Street and raise hundreds of millions of dollars of capital, it will cost them less than it costs CMP. It's not because they're smarter or better managed. It's the way our tax code and our corporate laws are. And that is another thing to focus on. And that's really the benefit down the road of their proposal. Thank you.
Well, I was supposed to have the science draw this, we go first. So you can fire me from this. Let's do our right first, and then we'll do.
How long do we for this?
You have 3 minutes for that.
It's 3 minutes. Yes. Okay. Thank you all so much for being here. And I think, a lot of folks all across the state have been watching as over the last 2 decades, our utilities, Central Maine Power and Versant Power, have been bought out by enormous energy conglomerates, foreign corporations and governments that have bought to control our electric grid. Instead of having reliable, affordable power, we have been subject to countless billing errors, some of the worst outages in the country, increasingly high rates, and service that we can't count on. And as Maine people are struggling to pay their bills, we just got a 20% delivery rate hike by the utilities this summer, 94,000 people receiving disconnection notices this spring, 10% of our state. Mainers from Fort Kent all the way down to Kittery are calling for a change. And that's why we have the opportunity on November 7th to vote yes on question 3 to establish the Pine Tree Power Company, a power company that is owned by us, as consumers and not private interests. A power company that we can trust because it is made up of an elected board that operates as an independent nonprofit. Consumer-owned utilities are a tried and true model here in Maine. We already have 10 of them, serving 98 municipalities across the state. And those consumer-owned utilities in the mainland have 52% less rates and delivery fees than what we're caught paying for CMP and Versant right now. So while we're dealing with this highly exploitative system that is investor-owned utilities, we have a clear model and path towards saving us money, but to building out the electric grid that we need for our future. An electric grid that we can rely on, that we can afford, and that is controlled by people in Maine and not foreign interests.
And I think that point of like who actually gets to decide what is the priorities for our grid, having it be actually the people, our neighbors, that we actually get to elect and actually exert direct control over the priorities, which for consumers pretty much consistently are, we want affordable power and we want reliable power. And for a investor-owned utility, the shareholders, which make the decisions, ultimately, the priority is maximizing profits, which means extract as much wealth as they can out of our communities. For me, that is a clear cut. What do I want? I want to have direct control. I want control with my neighbors about what's best for us. And this gives us the chance to do that and make sure that we have a grid that serves our interests.
Thank you. So I want to just lay out for you what question 3 is asking of us, okay? So the proponents of question 3, the folks who put this on the ballot, they're asking Mainers, all of us, to take a huge gamble. This is a huge gamble, and it's something that's never been done before. They want our state to take over 2 privately owned utilities that are not for sale. So definitely guaranteeing years of litigation at a cost of billions of dollars. Our estimates show 13.5 billion. I'm sure you've heard that number before. Those are our estimates. Our opponents say maybe 9 billion, maybe 10 billion. Either way, we're talking about billions of dollars of debt. And then question 3 puts politicians in charge of our electric grid. So we would be electing politicians who have no requirement for any experience or skills in this world of the grid. And then they would appoint others to run our electric grid. Let me just say one more piece. The final piece is those elected folks, that board will hire a for-profit private operator. So everything that you're going to hear tonight about profit and how bad profit is currently, they have written profit into their bill. We will be hiring a for-profit contractor. So that's what the bill is asking us to vote on.
Thank you very much. My concern about this is from the consumer point of view, and from one who is very familiar about how we regulate these utilities right now. The notion that the priorities of our utilities are set by some foreign owner is just not true. The laws in the state of Maine by your elected legislature have told the Public Utilities Commission what it should do to provide affordable rates, to provide adequate service, and to embark on a process which the commission has done to set specific performance standards for these utilities, which they are now obligated to meet or pay fines by their shareholders. Under the Pine Tree Power approach, there will not be any shareholders. Customers bear the entire risk of imprudent or uncompliance. At the back of the room, there is a piece of paper that I hope you can take a look at. The intent of this bill, in terms of the politics of their proposal and their passion, is to make you think that your bills will be reduced or somehow magically you're going to get better service quality. The only part of the bill that we're buying here, if we're buying it, is about 1/3 of what your total Bangor Hydro bill is. It's the blue distribution part of your bill. It is not the green supply part of your bill. That comes from the wholesale market, and it is procured under a bidding process by our Public Utilities Commission. The Pine Creek Power proposal won't change our legislative mandates to pay for efficiency, low-income programs, and solar subsidies. The big part of your bill is not subject to this proposal. And so the facts of what we're doing and the risks we might engage in accepting is what I would like to bring to the table to explain to you this evening. Thank you.
Well, you guys don't have to stand, sure. You'll be first for this one. I sent a prepared question to everyone to answer. And the question is, what effect will passing question 3 have on the average household in Maine, both in the short term and the long term? Again, they get 2 minutes to answer this question. 2 minutes first.
Well, actually, the answer to this question is very easy. The first thing that will happen is your bill will increase. When this bill passes and you elect this board, based on their priorities about what they want to do with the ownership control of this utility, is they will have to engage in a multi-year litigation effort to acquire these assets. It will almost certainly involve court-related activities. That all those costs are by the bill you're adopting. If you vote for this, all those costs go into your rates. They are deemed prudent under the language of the bill. The second thing they will do once they get control and acquire the assets is hire an operating company, the identity of which is not known, and which I can assure you there is no one in the state of Maine qualified to apply to operate these 2 utilities. They're just not there. They will have a contract, the cost of which is not known, with a profit margin built in, because of course they want to get paid a profit for doing this work, and those will impact your costs. The only potential long-term benefit for you is this notion of a lower cost of debt, which over time might have an impact on lowering rate impacts. But in the short run, your bills will increase. Thank you.
If folks haven't grabbed a copy of the actual policy we'll be voting on, there's some in the back over there. I recommend you all take a look. Pine Tree Power is our best path to being able to save money both short-term and long-term on our electricity bill. Obviously, the utilities are going to fight that in every single way, because right now they're taking $187 million in profit out of Maine every year to enrich their foreign shareholders. But Pine Tree Power will be operating as a nonprofit, meaning they'll work for us. And in the company purpose of the utility, it'll be to ensure accuracy and affordability in our cost of our power. This is really, really important to understand. Pine Tree Power will be able to access low interest municipal revenue bonds to fund both the acquisition of the utilities and the way we do grid improvements every day, meaning that we can fund and afford the grid of our future, something that's more reliable at a fraction of the cost of what we're paying right now. With CMP and Versant, we are paying an absentee landlord skyrocketing high rents in order to have poor service. Pine Tree Power is how we buy the house. We invest in long-term equity for both our future, our children and grandchildren's future, and how we actually get to a place of saving, as independent Maine economists say, $9 billion over 30 years. That's including what it's going to cost for us to buy out CMP and Versant. The timeline in the process of that acquisition is laid out really clearly in the bill, and there's a timeline graphic out in the back for you all to take a look at. When the opposition tells you that there's going to be all of these legal fees, that is based off of a very much misleading idea that utilities aren't going to follow the law that Maine voters decide this November.
Thanks. I think that's a great question. There is an important way to look at this proposal, short-term versus long-term. And the opponents will tell you that the costs are going to go up and up and up. The proponents will tell you the costs are going to go down and down and down. I believe that in the short run, there will be upward pressure on rates. This is this difference between the cost of the assets versus the fair market value. One way to think about it is through the existing rate making process, we owe CMP and Versant about $5 billion for what they cost the system. And we will pay that over many, many years. If we go with the Pine Tree proposal, we will pay the $5 billion plus an additional amount, which is what's called the acquisition premium to get the fair market value. It may not be 13.5 billion, it may be 10, 9, 8, but there are arguments, good arguments for why there will be additional money in the short run. Now, the long run is the tax exempt financing. This is a quirk of the federal tax code. When CMP goes to Wall Street to raise money, the investors have to pay an income tax on those dividends and interest payments. When Pine Tree goes to Wall Street to raise money, the investors do not have to pay a tax. It doesn't mean that one model is better or one group is smarter. It's a quirk of the tax code, but it is real. And in the long run, it will have downward pressure on rates. One way to think about it is if your home mortgage today is 9% interest, and all of a sudden you wake up tomorrow and they reduce it to 5% interest, your monthly payments may go from like $1,500 a month down to $1,000 a month. That's the kind of long-term savings that Pine Tree is offering.
From the audience, and some have been sent to us in advance. Some are coming through the streaming, and I will try to get to as many of these as I can. We will give 2 minutes to each side to answer the questions like we were over here. And the first question is, why is electricity in Maine so expensive?
Yeah, Maine does have very expensive power. I believe CMP has the 6th most expensive in the country. New England in general has high costs. Part of the cost is recently, when you look at both part of your bill, which is the cost of the generation, the natural gas prices have skyrocketed, and that has been a significant part of it. But we also have an expensive delivery, cost of transmission delivery. I think that when I watch how and I know they'll be taking exceptions here, but when I watch how the regulatory system works right now, as a citizen who's been following this since 2019, pretty closely, before that actually, and I don't see that the utilities are the priorities of actually keeping things affordable is not the top priority for the utilities, and they are very effective in making sure that their voices are very well heard in the Public Utilities Commission. And I think that we really, having a utility whose fundamental goal, because it's representing the interests of the ratepayers for affordability and for reliability, it will change actually the way in which costs, our long-term costs, including short-term costs. And if you look at other consumer utilities around the country and in this state, that is what is actually proven to be true.
I don't think this gentleman has been in any proceeding at Public Utilities Commission. if he thinks the utilities are in charge of this debate, because they're not. They obviously make proposals for specific investments in the system. And the latest rate case was all about improving reliability and customer service. Unions have contracts. They are opposed to this entire proposal, by the way. And unions have negotiated increases in their salaries. Those have to be paid. The contractors who are out doing tree and storm restoration, they wanted more money this year too, for the exact same reason all of our businesses have been under inflationary pressures with regard to equipment and cost of living. So the utilities come to the commission. There is a formal hearing with evidence on the record about what they want and how it should be paid for. The public advocate is there with their own consultants, consumers are there, and the result is a very evidentiary-based decision on your distribution rates. And they're higher for these two utilities in large part because of the service territory that they serve. Those tiny municipal utilities are basically 5 bucket trucks and a bunch of people who run around and help trees when the local town has an outage. That's not the case up in Jack. It's a big deal to pay for and assure reliability of service for these utilities. Massive service quality, service territories they have to take care of. Thank you.
No, just speak briefly. Our electricity prices are too high. They really are. And at 30 cents a kilowatt hour, many of our citizens, particularly low-income citizens, are really struggling under these high rates. But to find the cause and the blame is not easy. I come to my work every day as the public advocate, trying to find that cause. Some of it is beyond our borders. Some of it is the war in Ukraine and the price of natural gas. Some of it is a failure to realize that and reduce our dependence on natural gas. Some of it is what happens inside the legislature. The lobbyists are there, the environmental groups, the solar lobby, and other people are there passing laws that are passed on to the utilities that increase our costs. There are lots of reasons why our costs are too high. It's not entirely clear, other than this tax piece and the cost of capital I alluded to, whether Pine Tree can find ways to save in those costs. But the question is important. We all, and those of us in state government, and those of us running the utilities, those of us serving in the legislature, have not done a great job, and we got to do a better job getting the price of electricity down.
You started side this time, and the question is, why do you think so many people signed the petition to get Pine Tree Power on ballot? Is there an underlying problem that our current providers have not addressed?
Thank you. I think so many people signed the petition because I think in Maine, we have one of the highest voter rates in the country. We all go to the polls. We actually, don't we compete with Minnesota for the highest voting rates in the country, Maine and Minnesota? We're all at the polls. And often when people ask me to sign a petition, I generally say yes. I want to hear their ideas aired out. And I think most of us do. And I think that's why most people signed this petition. But here's a few things that it's not going to do. There is not, usually I hold up the bill, but the bill is back there. There is nothing in this bill that demands that rates are lower. The language isn't in there. We heard both Bill and Al talk about a mortgage and about if you lower interest rates, you can think about your mortgage. Let's be really clear. And I think this was where Governor Mills, when she came out last week or the week before in opposition to this proposal, she said, you know, we really have to think about how much interest is on this money. So let's not use the 13.5 billion, let's use 10 billion. How much interest do you pay a year when you borrow $10 billion? Does anybody know? 500 million a year. That's not a mortgage, right? You can't compare them. We're talking about serious debt here that we all and our children are going to be paying for.
But you should ask.
No, I'm all set. This is a really great question, and I talk to voters and people all over our state every day. And it has been abundantly clear that people are ready to vote out CMP in person. CMP is ranked dead last customer satisfaction in terms of nationwide utility, dead last for the last 4 years in a row. Versant, not far ahead of them. They were ranked worse than the utilities in California that were charged with homicide for the wildfires. And it's because it's been clear to Mainers all across the state that what we have right now is regulatory capture. You see, in the 1900s, when electricity was first coming and being spread all across the country, we had actually an equal amount of investor-owned utilities and consumer-owned utilities. We also had a period with some of the highest rates of wealth inequality. And so the investor-owned utilities were really good at lobbying the government to create what we now have as our regulatory system. It became clear that unlike most things, power had to be a monopoly. We couldn't have competing poles and wires because that would start tons of fires. It did. And so our government created this regulatory system where the public utilities commissions operate as like the courts. And our wonderful public advocate tries to be our public defender. We don't have markets to be protecting us with our current investor and utility system. We have a guaranteed monopoly. And what this has allowed is that corporations, international corporations that are based in Spain with majority ownership of Qatar, in Norway, the government of Calgary, have bought our utilities and now have used their billions of dollars of assets to lobby the main Public Utilities Commission, the main legislature, to maintain control against our interests as consumers. So people all over our state are ready to vote out that system, to create a power company that's owned by us as Mainers, that's accountable to us and not shareholders.
Speakers, I have been asked by people that are viewing us online if everyone could enunciate a bit better. The only person that you're hearing is Mr. Harvey's.
Thank you.
Sure. Is there anything you want to say?
I'm fine. Check, let's-
Okay, the next question. And I believe you guys first this time. And this is where you were. Where are the corporate offices of the parent companies of Versant and CMP? How are members to their boards selected? Are there any Mainers on these boards? And where are the offices that control Versant and CMP in the United States?
So the boards are for Versant, the board is in Calgary, Canada. And the board for CMP's parent company is in Spain. And I do not know if there's any Mainers on those boards, but you know. I do know that they are reflecting the interests of the shareholders, and the majority of those shareholders, well, Calgary owns, Versant 100%, and of course, so does the Spanish corporation, NMAX is Versant, Iberdrola. And so the interest, the people who ultimately these investor-owned utilities are responsible to are the shareholders, because the shareholders are who actually control the boards.
My understanding that former Governor Ballot is serving on Avangrid's board right now, receiving $200,000 a year for going to 6 board meetings. None of those board meetings are public, accessible to us, the people paying our electric bills. The Pine Tree Power Company will have open meetings, meaning they'll be required by law for it to be accessible to the public, with a democratically elected board that appoints 6 members. People can run using the Clean Elections Program in Maine, meaning we can have folks who are dedicated to providing affordable, reliable service representing us. Right now, we have politicians running our electric grid. They're just not our politicians, and they're not accountable to us as ratepayers or as voters. Right now, we've got foreign governments that are controlling our energy. This is a huge risk for our state and for our state's economy. It is extremely dangerous for our ability to invest in any type of security measures or benefits that would provide us more affordable, reliable power.
That's not true. Is that enunciated plainly enough for everybody? The boards in question are in charge of companies that have a right to earn a profit under our form of economy. The decisions about what Central Maine Power Company does to provide service to you, or Versant Power to provide service to you, is under the complete control of the Maine legislature, who tells the PUC what the priorities are for setting rates. The Public Utilities Commission approves every cent of the distribution service that's in your bill, and they approve the level of rate of return or so-called profit that might be attached to those rates. These are not people running amok out there trying to grab your income in a way that's inappropriate or not publicly available to review. The priorities of the utilities in Maine are set in Maine by Maine people right now. Thank you.
Let's finish up our time. The one thing I would just add to what Barbara said is that there's nothing in this bill that is going to ban a foreign government. So we're going to hear a lot about Spain. We're going to hear a lot about Calgary. If it was that important, should have put it in the bill. If we're making a choice on wanting that, it's not in the bill. And if it's not in the bill, it won't happen. The other piece that you really need to know is that they can talk a lot about profit and how bad that is, and we all might agree with that. They are hiring a for-profit operator. So if you're making a decision on getting rid of a for-profit operator or not, this is not your proposal.
Yeah, it's a great question. Some of us remember the good old days when Bangor Hydroelectric was here and Central Maine Power, and they were corporations in which all the directors, all the officers, and all the executives lived in the state of Maine. They went to bed every night in the state of Maine, they got up in the morning. What has happened in the electric utility industry, and it's not unique to Maine, is that more and more of these companies have been acquired by these large holding companies. And that creates some challenges for us in Augusta in terms of keeping track of where the costs are. And I want to say one thing right up front. We have tended in the last few minutes to paint CMP and Versant with the same brush. They're not the same. They're different companies. And in Versant's case, I think they have done a much better job of keeping things local here. The problem we're struggling with in Augusta with CMP is so many of their executives and decision makers do not work for CMP. They don't get a paycheck for CMP. They work for what we call the holding company, Avangrid or Iberdrola. That creates some challenges for us in Augusta in terms of keeping track of where the costs are and how much ratepayers should be paying. So that is one of the challenges we have. It's not unique to these utilities. It is where we are in the world today with consolidation and corporations merging and acquiring each other. But it is a challenge for us in Augusta.
start again with Barbara and Charlotte, and I'm putting two questions together. What is the role of the PUC in overseeing electric generation and the price of power? And who will oversee and regulate pine tree power?
Thank you. In 1999, the state of Maine, our legislature adopted what's called restructuring. It told our two utilities, CMP and Bangor Hydro and Maine Public Service Company, as they were then, you shall not own generation. You have to sell every generation that you currently own. We're going to rely on the wholesale market, market-based power to provide generation. Now, there's a lot of debate and a legitimate debate about whether that's a good idea, whether we've benefited from that, but that has nothing to do or will not be impacted by this Pine Tree Power proposal, which only is going to buy the distribution side of the bill. So your generation, the 50 to 70% of your bill, the one that's really gone up, the one that has made this unaffordable, the one that has caused great concern and angst by many folks, that is purchased by the Public Utilities Commission by competitive bids in the wholesale market. Then they turn around and tell the utilities, you have to build and collect these contracts that we have ordered you to enter into. So that's the distinction that I think most people simply don't understand, and I don't blame them. It's a complication in the whole regulatory structure that is not clearly obvious to many of us when we look at our bill. Thank you. Just one thing. The rates for the distribution service of Pine Tree Power will be subject to the Maine PUC's approval prior to going into effect.
As Barbara so clearly articulated, the Pine Tree Power Company will still be responsible for following the regulations of the Maine Public Utilities Commission, meaning our elected and appointed board that we get with Pine Tree Power will be responsible for fulfilling the same state and federal law that the utilities have to do right now. The problem, and it goes back to what I was talking about with the regulatory capture, is that we will no longer have this revolving door of people who work and profit from the investor-owned utilities, who then get appointed to being the very regulators, the very people who are supposed to be on our side, which is happening right now. We've got a process where people work for the investor-owned utilities for decades, make a lot of money being their lawyers, and then they go and are supposed to represent us as ratepayers in these positions. The utilities can spend millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars of money that's ultimately fueled from our rates to lobby the Maine Public Utilities Commission, to lobby the Maine legislature, to dictate their agenda. The folks who have spent any time up in Augusta trying to advocate for any bills that would maybe expand renewable energy generation have seen how much money the utilities are willing to pour against those fights. We basically are going to be voting out some of the biggest lobbyists that we have in the state of Maine. That's going to give us so much more ability to protect us as ratepayers, but to save us money, because we're not going to have to be paying for all of these legal fees, all of this political advocacy that's happening right now. Pine Tree Power will be required to fulfill the same obligations that the utilities have in responding to the Public Utilities Commission without that lobbying protection, meaning that we can have guaranteed more representation on every single level of utility oversight.
Thanks. I'll take the second half of the question is how is the PUC going to regulate Pine Tree Power? And this gets into some of the nuances of how we regulate utilities. But essentially, we have a lever in the rate making process where we can disallow costs that we don't think should be passed on to the ratepayers. And CMP and Versant are then required to recover those costs from their shareholders out of their profits. We have something called the prudence doctrine, And my office is constantly scouring CMP and versus spending to see if we can find any evidence that the spending was excessive or imprudent. If it was, we bring the case to the PUC, they hear the testimony, and they decide whether to disallow those costs. If we don't think the utilities are being managed efficiently, we can reduce their profit to the shareholders. We simply make what we call a management efficiency adjustment. And finally, if there are penalties or sanctions or fines on the utilities, they're not allowed to pass those on to the ratepayers. So if one of their trucks gets stopped on the main turnpike and gets given a ticket for $150 for speeding, that doesn't get passed on to the ratepayer. The challenge with Pine Tree Power is there's no shareholder to absorb that. And we're not quite sure how this is going to work, but our job as the ratepayer advocates and the regulators is going to become more challenging because we don't have this one tool. It's one of those things where you would like to be able to say to the utility, if there is excessive spending, if there is unreasonable spending, it shouldn't be passed on to the ratepayer. But if the only place you can recover your costs is from the ratepayer, we have this in our office today among some of the consumer-owned utilities. From time to time, we find they're being deficient, even violating some law. And we immediately say, but what's the point in fining them or imposing a penalty on them? It has to come from the ratepayer. So that's one aspect of this that is worth thinking about.
We were veterans. It appears we are on the verge of new large storage battery technology, which business structure, Pine Tree Power or what we have now, will be more nimble in adapting to other new technology?
Well, I'm sure Mr. Harwood is going to have something to say about that. When the legislature mandates that our utilities enter into new technologies or programs to increase renewable energy, they do so in a way that impacts your bill. It is included in your distribution rates, but it is not related to distribution service. So we call those public policy mandates, and they are included. Last July, $100 million of those mandates went into rates for main consumers. These are not related to anything CMP does or doesn't do to provide distribution service. They are to impose subsidies for what the public at the legislature has determined would be appropriate to improve our situation and get off natural gas power and get more into renewables. So we could debate whether that's a good idea or not, but the point is they are not related to the distribution service that is being purchased and operated by Pine Tree Power.
Love that question. So in the what we'll be voting for, it says on the back there on page 4, it says one of the company purposes is to provide an open, supportive, and competitive platform to develop and deploy renewable generation, supply, efficiency, and beneficial electrification technologies. Where that is one of the company purposes. And the other thing, the question specifically also about battery technology. I do not know if right now the PUC or the public advocate has actually established a position about whether or not battery storage will be considered actually distribution or generation. I think that's a point I can't speak to. But if it is part of Pine Tree Power's part of the grid as defined in Pine Tree Power, we will have the access of extremely low cost capital to make those investments. And that will make an enormous difference in the cost to consumers in the long run and in the short run. And I also say that having spent time in Augusta, as a citizen advocate for renewable energy and I have seen the effects of the utilities lobbyists very effectively shoot down pretty much every single piece of legislation, not every, but most of the legislation that was tried to be passed around promoting the solar bills during the LePage period, and as well as renewable energy programs, efficiency programs. They have been a very powerful 500-pound gorilla in Augusta that very often gets their way, and it's not for the best of us. So, or for renewable and energy.
Barbara, can I respond?
And they will get a time to respond. Sure, a minute.
Thank you. I think it's really important what Jonathan referenced from the bill are the company purposes. And the company purposes also include things like to advance economic, environmental, and social justice and to benefit company workers and all communities in the state. Now, that is something I 100% believe in. I'm a very liberal progressive. I really believe in that. Whether these company purposes come to truth or come to fruition is going to completely depend on who is elected to this board. That's the way this works. Right? It isn't just we put it in a document and it magically happens. It is going to all depend on who is elected to that board. I also heard a lot of comments about special interest money. Imagine the amount of special interest money that will flood into our state when people are running for this board. Why? Because these for-profit companies that they put into the bill are going to be bidding to get the contract. Therefore, they want the people that are going to support them on the board. You're welcome. Thank you.
I'm so tall, I have to pull this out. I know it's an annoying noise. I can't bend over like that. Pine Tree Power Company's mandate is the company purpose, meaning that we will elect and appoint a board that's responsible for fulfilling that mandate for us to support them in the future. Right now, our investor and utilities have one mandate, one purpose, and that is to increase shareholder returns, to increase the amount of money they can funnel out of our state. Meaning that there has been no serious investment in the types of energy that we actually need to get to the distributed grid of our future. We haven't heard about the amount of money that's going to need to be poured into our grid over the next decade to actually increase our reliability. Our grid is suffering. We've got two options. Do we want to continue allowing the investment utilities to funnel such high money, or do we want to actually approach this low cost of capital? We don't have any say over the special interests in the lobbying that the utilities are doing right now. This gives us a democratic voice and option to be able to figure out who do we want representing our interests in our utilities.
Another good question. We have a problem in Augusta, and that is there are some very powerful lobbyists who want to see things like battery and wind and solar developed. I want to see battery and wind and solar developed as well, but they are looking for large subsidies. Those subsidies are paid for by CMP in person and show up in your rates. I am there on behalf of ratepayers asking over and over again to not pass through those big subsidies, to not give them the big subsidies. It is hard work. Those lobbyists are powerful, and they are the people who make batteries are going to be there pushing this issue. I would love to know if one of these two models would be better at working with me, partnering with me, and pushing back where the lobbyists are asking for excessive subsidies. I can't see one being better than the other. Both of them, I'm sure, will appear to be advocating for their ratepayers, and I believe they are sincere. But it takes courage to go into the state capitol, into those hearings, and fight for the ratepayers against the corporate interests. And that's the question, but I don't see any evidence of whether Pine Tree or Versant or CMP is going to be doing more of that or more effective.
Pine Tree now taking over all the transmission and distribution lines.
Pine Tree Power will be acquiring the 2 investor utilities. Not all of them, because we already have 10 incredibly successful consumer-owned utilities that are already serving their communities. We've got Pine Tree Power in the coalition behind our campaign has no interest in messing with the consumer-owned utilities that are already doing right by their people. With having lower rates and better affordability, we have learned so much from Holton Light, from Madison Electric, from Eastern Maine Electric Co-op, Kenny Bunk Light and Power, about how even some of our most rural utilities, Eastern Maine Electric has 3.5 times more lines per ratepayer than anyone in Versant territory. Yeah, a few weeks ago with Hurricane Lee, they got service up and running and were more communicative than anyone in Versant territory. They've had better reliability over the last 4 years than people in Versant, even though they're more rural and consumer-owned utility. We see this over and over again, and we also see consumer-owned utilities all across the country that are the same size and scale of what the Pine Tree Power Company would look like, are able to deliver high customer satisfaction at an affordable price. A good example of this is the Sacramento Municipal Utility District, which serves as many ratepayers as we would have here in Maine. They've got 93% customer satisfaction. I don't know of many businesses that have 93% customer satisfaction, because they run an elected board and they have a huge mission to having community oversight, to be having community meetings. We have talked to their team and they've shared with us that they have over 1,000 meetings a year because they're constantly going to different community groups to learn how they can be better serving their ratepayers. This is the type of company we can expect to see with Pine Tree Power because we have this model in Maine and all across the country.
Yeah.
So first of all, I just want to say that what we're voting on is not a consumer-owned utility. The Maine Supreme Court ruled when there was some legal work about what the question should look like. The Maine Supreme Court said the question could not say consumer-owned utility because this is not that. So let's just be clear about that. The second thing is there's really some cherry picking going on here. And that just shows how sort of disingenuous, I hate to say it, but it's disingenuous to say that the consumer-owned utilities in Maine all have better service and lower rates. It's just not true. They just only talk about the ones that have better service and lower rates. There are many consumer-owned utilities in Maine that have higher rates, that have less customer satisfaction. So the idea that one is 100% better, it's just not true and it's not honest.
Back to my favorite item, the chart. The orange portion of your bill is federally regulated regional transmission charges. They can't buy those. So we're only buying the distribution lines and the distribution service equipment, the substations, the offices, the contracts, and all of the equipment that is owned by CMP and Versant Power, not federally regulated transmission line prices. That's an important matter. Sacramento Municipal District is probably well run. I have no personal knowledge, but the key point is they didn't take over their service territory with eminent domain. And they did not have a for-profit operating company to do their work. And the model for this bill is not what Sacramento does. Thank you.
Barbara, first, when I respond to these morning claims that it's not true to call them a consumer utility. Maine statute, hopefully our public advocate can help explain this more than I can, has defined our utilities in 2 different buckets: investor-owned utilities and consumer utilities. The consumer-owned utility bucket contains many types of utilities, co-ops, municipal utilities, publicly owned utilities. The investor-owned utility bucket is utilities that are owned by shareholders. By Maine law, Pine Tree Power Company falls under the consumer-owned utility bucket. The utilities are trying to confuse people, and they're relying on the Secretary of State's decision in the Maine Law Court. The Maine Law Court said, and the Secretary of State said, that most voters aren't going to understand what that means, which is why they didn't put the language on the bill. They were not giving a clear definition of this is not in Maine law. They were trying to figure out what will most voters understand. So Maine statute has it clearly laid out, and I just wanted to react to that.
Can I get a minute? What the Maine Supreme Court said was that the question couldn't include quasi-governmental because Maine voters might not understand that. They did not say that they couldn't include the word consumer-owned utility because Mainers wouldn't understand it. They said they couldn't use the word because that's not what this is. So maybe there's some definition in the statute that includes different buckets, but in this policy discussion, there was a ruling of how the question could be written based on what this is and based on what Maine people might think it was that it is not. And anybody can look up the Supreme Court's ruling, and anything we talk about tonight, you can find all of that information.
Are you thoroughly confused? This is the semantics. Is this a government takeover or is this consumer owned? And it really isn't worth spending a lot more time. In Augusta, we generally divide the utilities into two categories, investor owned and consumer owned. But the consumer owned utilities have two types of utilities within their bucket. One is what we call a government or municipal utility, and the other is what we call truly a consumer owned. The only difference is in the consumer owned utility, the utility itself runs the election. You go to the gym, and we have this in some of the co-ops on a Saturday, and you vote for the board of that co-op. In the government, you go the second Tuesday in November to the election, to the polling place, and you vote for the trustees or the directors of that. I don't think most of us care too much whether we're going to the gym on a Saturday to vote for the co-op or whether we're going to the election in November to vote. It is a distinction that I don't think is very helpful in having people make up their mind, but I'm sure the polling tells them that if they can convince you it's a consumer-owned utility, they'll be more likely to vote for the proposal, and if they can convince you it's not a consumer-owned utility, you'll be less likely to vote for the proposal. I don't see much substantive difference.
Let's talk about question one. What happens if voters say yes to 3 and no to question 1? And can you give us more information about question 1? Although designated as to defeat Pine Tree Power, Power's ability to borrow needed funds would also impact other important organizations. What exactly would it mean to other organizations, both public and quasi? And is there a sunset clause?
I'm not sure. That was a very long question, though. Could you read that again? Or could you just answer the first part?
It's 2 questions together.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, got it.
But you can answer. Oh, fine. Oh. What happens if voters say yes to 3 and no to 1? That's the easy part.
Okay.
But what happens to other organizations in the state, both quasi or independent? And is there a sunset clause?
Thank you. The first question, what happens if both pass? We will end up in the court, everything will end up in the courts, right? Because we don't know. I mean, it's one of the other uncertainties that we head into. One, they're competing with each other. If they both pass, the courts have to decide. Maybe that's an easier way to describe it. I can't really list for you everything that will be affected by question 1 and everything that won't be affected by question 1. Here's what I can tell you though. When we're talking about our community colleges and we vote for bonds, we're not usually voting on bonds that are billions of dollars. Question 1 is purely about if the government is going to borrow over $1 billion, should Maine voters have a vote? Oh, that's what it is. This proposal is proposing to borrow, they say 9, sometimes they say 10, we say 13.5. Either way, it is a proposal to borrow billions of dollars, and we believe that if the state of Maine is going to borrow over $1 billion, all of us should have a say. That's what question 1 is. And no, I do not believe there's a sunset clause.
Perfect background for folks that haven't been following question 1 as much. Question 1, it was a citizen initiative process that was bought. Maine Affordable Energy Coalition, the political front group, had one funder, CMP's parent company, Avangrid, paid millions of dollars to collect the signatures to get on the ballot. The Secretary of State's office, I think, threw out about 30,000 of those signatures for being invalid. It's an example of how the utilities have been trying to buy this election to buy support, to put fear into people about how we actually move to have a more affordable power. We don't believe that question 1 is going to impact our ability to acquire the utilities to create the Pine Tree Power Company. We believe that there's language in our policy that makes it so we don't need to get a second vote for voter approval. But even if we're wrong, we're not afraid of that because it is clear it's time to vote out CMP in person. And what we want is more democracy with Maine people being able to influence the decisions that impact them most. I'm concerned that one of Maine Affordable Energy's representatives told us that they can't list what's going to be impacted question 1 votes because it's not a serious question. It's a political mover, and they're the organization that's behind question 1. So I would hope and expect that we could have a little bit more understanding about what the impacts of that are going to be for our entire state. But we didn't get to hear that. We see time and time again, the utilities are willing to pour tens of millions of dollars into influencing this election. The campaign finance reports for this quarter come out Thursday evening. I encourage you all to watch out, to take a look at how much money Avangrid, Inverse's parent company, NMAX, are pouring into this to influence it, because we are truly showing how we can save money, and they're terrified of their ability, they're going to stop being able to funnel so many profits out of the state of Maine. I'm going to pass to you. Actually, pass it.
Question 1 is kind of the wild card in the thing. It's hard to know exactly what to say about it, how to deal with it. It creates a lot of uncertainty. It will create a lot more litigation. The people behind question 1 wanted to make it clear that Pine Tree Power would have to go back to the voters a second time to get approval to raise the money to acquire the assets. People in Pine Tree put in their proposal that they don't have to go to the voters to get approval. So we've got 2 competing provisions, inconsistent provisions, and that's where lawyers make their living, and the judges will resolve them. The basic question is, if Pine Tree passes, if question 3 passes, is it good public policy to ask the voters to do a second time and vote for the purchase, to raise the money for the purchase price? If you like Democrat voting, if you like letting the peoples have a say in things, then by all means, question 1, it looks like good public policy. If you are concerned about the voters voting down the acquisition because essentially CMP and Versant are going to get a second shot at this, and then where are we? We've got Pine Tree created, but they can't raise the money to acquire the assets. It's a bit of a mess that we'll have to sort out. But that's sort of, I think the better way I look at this is vote your heart on question 3, vote what you think is best on Pine Tree, and try not to let question 1 affect you, because it is very messy and complicated.
Again, I'm putting two questions together. Versus in CMP, very high costs and poor reliability. What do they propose to do to keep us as customers? And second question is, if we don't accept Pine Tree Power, what options do consumers have to get better service so that consumers will be more satisfied with the utilities?
But you really take that one?
Oh, I would love to. I have so much to say.
Yeah.
Well, I will let utility folks represent the first question, because I'm not quite sure what PNP and Versant could do at this point to prove their worth as customers. With the worst customer satisfaction, some of the highest power outages in the country, and constantly increasing rate hikes, I'm not convinced as a ratepayer that they have my interests at heart. I've seen millions of dollars being poured the lie containers about what this election entailed, and that alone leaves a really bad taste. What I know about Pine Tree Power, though, is that we have the ability collectively to elect the board that we want to be representing us, so that we can figure out how we actually invest and build the grid of our future at a fraction of the cost of what we're paying right now. We know that if Pine Tree Power doesn't pass, that we are going to be faced with the same burden that we are right now, with high-paid lobbyists and lawyers who work for the investor utility, fighting accountability at every single scale. They can pour $500,000 into lobbying against utility accountability legislation in Augusta. And what we've seen is a revolving door between people who work and who are elected to be in the legislature, who then go and represent the utilities as lobbyists. We've got many of those folks right before us right now. This is a huge problem, meaning that this ownership transition, this ability to go from the investor model to the consumer model, is our only path toward getting out of that lobbying that we are never, as citizens who are, spending our own time and energy, going to be able to compete against. Pine Tree Power, you should look at our campaign finance reports compared to what the opposition are. We are funded by over 1,500 donors from all across the state, people who are dedicated to pushing a different vision that gets us outside of the regulatory capture we have right now.
I don't represent utilities. I never have. I am not here to represent CMP and Versant Power. I am here to help you understand the consumer impacts of this proposal. Right now, we have legislation on the books adopted by our main legislature that requires the commission to impose significant improvement in reliability and customer service standards on our utilities. They have done so. The last rate case includes very specific standards. Our utilities do not provide as bad a reliability standard as many of you have been led to believe by demagoguery. People are upset about the size of their bill, but as I've indicated, that's really not related to the distribution part of your bill. Back to what we do in Augusta, and I have argued for strict standards. They have penalties attached to them. They are conditions for this rate increase. They will be monitored. And by the way, the chairman of the board or the Maine Public Utilities Commission is the former head of the Maine Democratic Party. Now, this notion that there is some secret set of lobbyists going on among the commission and the staff, many of whom have been there many years, dedicated to public service, is a fallacy. Thank you very much.
I'm not happy with CMP or Versant's rates for service. There's room for improvement. We work at it in our office every day to try and find ways to get those rates more affordable and get the service better. But you've got to put things in perspective here before we get too far down the road. CMP and Versant's rates are very competitive in New England. They are close to what the other New England utilities charge. And then you ask the question, well, how does New England shape up against the rest of the country? Not well. We have high electricity costs in New England. There's a number of factors. We talked about the natural gas being a big factor here, and the way we do transmission and share transmission costs, it is all creating upward pressure. But when you look at CMP and Versant compared to the rest of the New England utilities, you can take some comfort that they are fairly competitive. As far as service is concerned, we'd all like to see better service, but it comes with a cost. And this is the trouble, the challenge we have of trying to balance affordability and a service. We can order CMP and Versant to do more to keep the lights on and do more to answer the phone timely, but that comes with a cost. And we are trying very hard to balance that affordability versus service. It's not easy, and what may be more for one ratepayer is different for another ratepayer. We are trying to balance the 750,000 ratepayers and make a judgment call on service versus affordability. I don't think that's going to get any easier. We're doing it with Pine Tree. It's difficult trade-offs that have to be made in Augusta, and we will continue to do our best to do it, but I can't see why one model versus the other is going to make that trade-off any easier.
I have many more audience questions, but we are going to try to end around 7:30. So this is the last public question, and then we'll have closing remarks.
Okay, I don't remember. That sounds good to me.
Please give more nitty-gritty details about who will run and manage Pine Tree Power and then how they will be chosen. Will be elected, how Justin understands.
The 15-page bill that you will be adopting if you vote yes clearly requires that elections will first occur throughout the state of Maine to elect the 7 members of the board who are elected. They will then appoint themselves without any legislative approval or public process, 6 individuals to sit with them on the board. And there are a number of criteria in the law that they should consider when selecting those 6 people. After that, they can hire their own staff, they can hire their attorneys, they can hire their consultants, and they can start the process of trying to acquire the assets of the 2 utilities. At some point, they will conduct a public bid to solicit people to operate and manage the 2 utilities. That process is one that we don't know what will happen there. We don't know who's qualified to do that. And we don't know the cost and profit that they would naturally require to do this work. So they will replace the top management of both utilities. And so that's one of the big unknowns. That's one of the risks that I'm very worried about with this entire process. Thank you.
Who will be serving on the Pine Tree Power Board can be found on pages 4 and 5 of the petition language. And Barbara did a fantastic job of explaining the 7 elected and then 6 appointed. The 6 appointed members have to have expertise in utility law and management, about the concerns of utility employees, about electricity consumers, about generation, storage, delivery, about planning for climate mitigation and extreme weather, for economic, environmental, and social justice. Just read for you with their expertise. These 7 elected board members will have to use consensus as our model to figure out how do we bring on these 6 people who fill the holes that we weren't able to bring to this board. And then most importantly, they'll then be accountable to us because we can go to their meetings. We can watch what we can do. We can then bring the question of power, of our electricity, critical to our lives and our economy, into more common discussion. Right now, we have not heard from the no side about who's sitting on Avangrid and Max's board. We haven't heard their names, how much they're getting paid, what expertise do they have in running our utility. From the service that I'm seeing, not a lot. We know the Pine Tree Power proposal keeps all worker jobs. It actually gives folks a retention bonus for staying on because of that private management company. Right now, the investor-owned utilities are able to take such high profit because they get their profit over capital investment. In a different model with nonprofit public ownership, Pine Tree Power will be able to use a private operator that will generate profit from operations. A really different profit model for folks to understand. For folks who don't understand what those words mean, I didn't a while ago either. And it's, I really encourage you all to look up the difference between how investment and consumer-owned models operate.
I'll just say briefly, I think it really depends on the individuals who are involved, as you've heard. It really depends on the voters, and you folks vote. There will be 7 elected members. The state will be divided up into 7 districts, so each area of the state will have its own representative on the board. And if you are of the view that we're likely to get some tired political hacks running who don't know much, don't care much about utilities, then maybe it's not such a good idea. If you're of the view that basically most of the people who put their name on the ballot and get their signatures are public servants who care about serving the public, then this shouldn't scare you. And that's really a philosophical view as to how you view voting for public officials.
And now each side will get 3 minutes. Did I say 3 minutes? Yes, to do a closing statement.
Thank you, and thank you again for the opportunity to be here. I think Bill really said it well. You all have a lot of things to think about when you go to the poll. So I want to make sure that you think about, are all of your questions answered? Some of the questions that I have are, why are so many of the promises we keep hearing about, why are they not in the text of the bill? Why is there no requirement in the bill for lower rates? Why is there no requirement in the bill for better service? Why is there no requirement in the bill for more renewables? Who's going to oversee our electric grid? Why aren't those politicians required to have any experience? Who's going to be the person to run the grid? What happens to the workers? That's something we didn't talk about tonight. Those are the people that work at CMP. We've heard a lot about Spain. We've heard a lot about Calgary. The people that work at CMP, they're our neighbors. There's almost 2,000. What's going to happen to those workers? What's going to happen to the pensions? What's going to happen to those promises that were made? How do you merge 2 companies in just a few months? We heard a lot about how service is going to increase so much. So here we are, we're going to take 2 companies. They have different staff, different operating systems, proprietary operating systems, all different systems, and we're going to put them together and expect them to just offer us great service in 3 months. We can't even close a mortgage in 3 months, right? Like, you can't buy a house in that amount of time. So are we really going to see, it's like breaking 2 bicycles, putting them together and riding them down the road at the same time? How is that actually going to happen? And you have to answer that question for yourself. That's a pretty common sense question. Does it seem like it's going to work? How much are we going to pay for it? And I really want you to think about all parts of that. Again, I think we agree the cost is in the billions. 9, 10, 13.5 billion is sort of where we're all kind of circling around. I talked to you about the interest. Think about the loss of these companies and what they pay for taxes. income taxes to our state. Think about the loss of that. Where do we make up for the loss of those pieces of money that come in? Who makes that up? Think about the taxes. Now, I know that because I served in the legislature with Representative Barry, at the last minute, in order to get some votes, he added in that this would be the only nonprofit in the state that, my time's over? Wow, that went fast. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for your time and attention. I think this is an issue of, do we want to have local control, that we actually have the say over what policies and what priorities we have for the grid going into the future? And also, how do we access low cost capital, so the investments which we must make to have a reliable grid that it has. Personally, I want to see a decarbonization to address climate change, and that investment is going to require a lot of money. And are we going to spend and get that money at a low cost or a high cost? That difference makes a difference of whether we can afford to actually move towards a viable future. I have grandchildren. They remind me of my commitment to the future every day. That is why I volunteered for this in 2019, because I think it will make a critical difference for our future, for all of our futures. That's why I'm up here. That's why I asked for your vote for yes on 3.
We've got an important question as Maynards this November. And we've got a campaign that has been working since 2019 to figure out how we create a system, a model that replicates the success we have in Maine across the country of saving people money on their energy bills. A coalition that is made up of business leaders, of youth climate organizations, of energy experts, of nurses, labor unions, of so many groups that support Pine Tree Power to consumer and utility, being funded and supported by thousands of people across the state. And then we have a campaign that is being funded by our 2 investor-owned utilities, where they have millions and millions of dollars on their service. They're not relying on their ability to actually represent us. They're using a disinformation campaign that has been replicated by big oil, by big tobacco, by multinational corporations way before them. And it's successful. But Mainers, we know what we're looking at every month. We know that our power bills continue to go up, and yet shareholder profits continue to grow. I know that I am not for a system that wants to have people in Spain, Calgary, and Qatar making money while my neighbors get disconnected notices. When I continue to see the failure of our regulatory system, the failure of our state to be able to actually influence the monopoly that the power companies have right now. Pine Tree Power gives us the ability to create a reliable power grid, as Jonathan mentioned, at a fraction of the cost. To bring down our bills, to save us $367 a year starting day 1, because we're not paying that shareholder profit. And most importantly, to bring back local control of Maine's energy grid, so we can trust and know the people who are providing us our energy. Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for having us today.
Thanks. I'll try and be brief and not keep you here any longer. This is not easy. This is a difficult decision that we have to make on November 7th. You've heard a lot of passion here, some exaggeration, some claims that may not be right. I think what comes through to me is a couple of things. One, in the short term, to come back to where we started, the short term versus long term. In the short term, there are clearly some challenges. There's going to be some uncertainty. There's going to be some litigation. There's going to be a lot of legal work to be done. And this acquisition price is going to be above what we owe today to CMP Universal. We don't know how much, but it's probably going to be above. So if you're looking in the short term, if you're risk averse in the short term, I think you're more inclined to vote no. But if you're looking in the long term, if you're thinking I'm not voting so much for myself as my children and grandchildren, the payoff at the end of that risk and uncertainty is this lower cost of capital. each and every year that Pine Tree goes to Wall Street versus CMP in person, there is a substantially lower cost of capital. And that's why some of the studies have found overall, the ratepayers are better off if you run the study out 20, 30, 40 years, because at the end, there is this benefit. But don't minimize the upfront risk and uncertainty and cost. And that's perhaps the best way I can leave you as the trade-off that we're all going to face on November 7th. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening.
I want to thank my speakers very much for coming. It was an amazing evening. I've learned an awful lot. I do these forums because I can't make my mind up until I hear things going on. I have a lot of questions left that weren't answered, and they're very, very good questions. So I'm sorry we couldn't get to them. I will say the league has done 2 other issue forums on this topic. One was down east and one in the capital area. They are recorded and you can listen to them on the league's website, through the league's website. And I know that the Bangor Daily News is doing another forum with Channel 13 in the southern part of the state. So I advise you to read as much as you can and keep asking questions. Tomorrow night, starting at 5:30, the league is hosting another issues forum. It will do question 2 and 4 through 8. Our Secretary of State will be here to discuss, plus Colin Cohen and Wright King. So I hope you can join us then. And then, as if I'm not doing enough, on Thursday, we're doing the candidates forum for Bangor City Council and Bangor School Committee. So I hope that you will stay informed, and thank you so much for coming.